I'm like, is it a Radler? Is it a Pilsner? Is it IPA? Is it a lager? Is it an ale? He's like, oh, dude, it's a light beer. I'm like, oh, it's sick. That's that's just what I needed.
I'm glad for you. Cool.
Yeah.
Now I've been telling myself to not touch any alcohol for a little bit, just to wait until after the hardcore grieving process.
Right.
It's the whole idea of drinking while you're grieving and sad. I want to commemorate my grandma by standing on top of a large building with. She likes gin and squirt, so I'm just gonna drink this whole thing of gin.
Yeah, like bad, not bad, but non-happy emotions don't mix well with drugs and alcohol.
If I crazy daisy this piss all off the building onto the police officers below, I bet it will bring her back.
More it sounds something more like shrooms would do.
Shit. All right. Nick,
Yeah.
do you have a rough idea about how you want to talk about this?
I mean, we can start with Obsessed with Success, and then we can talk about the iterative process, what I did to actually get the game, and all the other games that came before it. Because there was another game that we designed before this, but this is the one that we're sticking with in terms of like long-term ideas.
Okay.
In total, I think in the last month and a half, we designed 3 games. All of which we play tested. Obsessed with Success, we did a lot more vigorous playtesting. But yeah.
Okay, cool. How do we do this in terms of like hosting and sending the flow? I feel like
I feel like because I'd be talking about the games and stuff that we did, it'd make sense for you to host. So you could prompt me with questions.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I could try that. I just feel like I'm gonna light a fuse and then there's gonna be a 30-minute firework display. I'm like, all right, and that's it for this. I mean, I think hosting in this situation is superfluous. Yeah, that
Sure.
word.
Yeah, English is fantastic.
Yeah, it's just a title in this case. Sure. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm just fucking with you. Can you imagine? I just start when you leave.
I was gonna say my room is now like is in the concrete part of the house, so it is a lot colder than the rest of the suite, which is gonna be fantastic for the summer.
I agree. All right, then let's see. Let me do last sip. Actually, let me do the vape first because I always drink and then vape and a cough and I got to drink again, and then I got to go on a tangent. Man, the food at that lunch I had after the funeral is just god awful.
All right, because that's what you look forward to.
I thought it was going to be nice. It was at a fucking hotel. Like, okay, fancy catering at the hotel.
So tomorrow we're doing episode 47. Do you want the official? Yeah. So do you want the official episode record the next Saturday to be episode 48, and then this can be 49, and then the D&D can be 50?
Sure. That's going to be a hell of a special.
Or do you want to do this? And tomorrow's 47. This is 48. Then we have another regular episode, and then we have another special.
Do you want to call this an actual episode?
I mean, I'm just thinking about what would make it easier for when you're here, so we don't actually have to like work because it is going to be your first vacation, and also like it will be a scuff setup.
Let's see, 13, 20. Sorry, I'm just saying the dates here.
Yeah.
So we have 2 more weeks, so we'll be able to record normal episodes, and then we'll have 2 weeks of.
Well, the D&D is going to be a long one. So I don't know if you
Oh
want
yeah,
to do that as an episode or if we just want to have that as a special and don't count it. So that means basically we have to record 2 numbered episodes.
I would say that that D&D thing is we're gonna keep it as one. I might split it in 2 parts and just do like one on one day and then one the next day, so people don't, or just split them, put them out the same day. That way, people know if they want to listen to it or not. I feel like we should make that a numbered episode though, just for shits and giggles.
D&D, sure. Okay.
Okay, cool. Ironically, the last time I recorded a D&D session was for the celebration of somebody's 100th episode, so pretty well. Now I get to do it for the 50th, and I'm going to kill somebody.
Yeah.
I tried to persuade the bandit to free me. He stabs you. Don't I roll? Nope. This bandit has charisma of the gods. You cannot persuade him. He was not happy, and he stabbed you.
So are we just doing this purely as a special then?
I would say this is a special. Just throw it on like on the 20. Sorry, I would say that we would throw this one on the 29th, and then the D&D on the 6th. So this would be, yeah, I just use it to supplement that the fact we're going to be out for a week technically,
All right.
or not. We got a couple of weeks to figure out what we want to add. If we want to pad it out with something else.
Okay, I'm ready.
Are you?
Yeah.
Clear the room. Turn on the fucking red light to show that we're recording. Wow. Gotta do an intro. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Casual Master Quest. This is gonna be a side quest, a little bonus for anybody that's listening. We're gonna have some off time, so to speak, as I travel over to Canada. We're gonna have some fun over there, and unfortunately, I don't think we're gonna be able to record. So this episode is gonna be here just in case, and I'd like to think it's an important one. Nick, how are you doing, buddy?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm doing okay. I think when this episode finally does come out, I'll be done with school officially for the semester. But right now, as we're recording this, I've got a final in a few days. I've got another project a few days after that. Then I've got another deadline the day after that. Then I've got another final, and then I'll finally be done.
That is a lot of finals, Nick. That sounds like, I guess, college life, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it is what it is. It's all ramping up, and I mean, we are hitting the climax, right? I'm almost done.
Oh, cool. So technically, right now you're edging.
As hard as I can.
Okay. Edging for exams. I bet there's an anime for that. Okay.
I'm sure there is.
So also I forgot to say my name's Tyler Vidito, but you guys know that. You're cool enough to recognize the nice suave voice.
I hope so.
Just for a random thing, a couple episodes ago, I was terrible with the mic. I'd like to apologize for that. Even though a couple episodes should pass between now and then. I'll probably apologize again next time you hear me, like 2 weeks previously. Anyways, time travel. It's irrelevant. Nick, you have been working on an incredible project over the past, oh man, how many months?
Honestly, it only took about 2.5 weeks to come up with that completely. It's just that course had so many other games we had to design, that it just felt like it was never ending. But that specific game, Obsessed with Success, took me and my team 2.5 weeks.
Okay. And before we continue, I'll edit this part out. For some reason, there's points when you talk to the mic, it sounds like you're far away, and all of a sudden it comes in crystal clear. Do you know why that is?
Hang on, let me fix that. It just might be the mic placement. I'm still getting used to it.
There we go. Perfect.
Yeah, that should be a lot more consistent.
It's beautiful. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure your
No, no,
audio
that's fine.
is okay. Wow. So 2.5 weeks, you'd think EA would start come knocking. It's like, hey, you want to turn over a game for me? Haha, we love money.
You'd
But
think. Um,
man, go ahead.
so no, I was just gonna say, just as a background for the course that we did, it's called Foundations of Game Design. And a few years ago, it used to be a mixed tabletop game like development class and also an actual video game development class. But a lot of people, they realized that a lot of the students, when they made video games, were spending so much time debugging and trying to make the code work. Nobody actually made a fun game. So they're like, all right, screw it. We're just going to scrap the whole video game elements and we'll just teach you the principles and foundations of how to make a good game, regardless of whether it's a physical game or it's a digital game.
Okay, that is fair. How long have you been taking this class?
So to start at the start of semester, which was Jan. So Jan till I think semester started Jan 4th. So Jan 4th till officially April 11th.
Okay, so
Yeah.
4 months. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, 4 months in 10 days.
Something like that. And so starting March, the first 2 months of the course were like kind of getting to know each other, playtesting a bunch of games. Our first assignment was we got a game called Up the River, an old school style game where you have a board, you have 10 tiles, the tiles keep going back every turn. And if you're on the last tile and that gets swapped out, you die, kind of thing.
You
And so we had
die.
to,
Oh,
yeah, not in the game, you die in the game, not IRL.
I
Just wanted to
mean,
make that clear.
the mafia would love it if you Russian roulette's just getting so bored, and let's just do what do you call that? Up the river.
Up the river.
I'm gonna say the mafia would probably prefer it down the river, but take what you can get.
Right. Um, I'm simplifying the game a little bit, but basically we were given that game. They were like, all right, you need to redesign it. And we had some specifications. We redesigned that. And, it was five of us in a group. Everybody else was in groups of four. There was one group of three and one group of five, which was us. Obviously, teaching staff made sure that it was okay with both them and us, that it remained like this because we started playtesting a bunch of games in the first 2 weeks, and then we just really liked the way we were interacting with each other, and we didn't want to split apart.
Right.
And so starting about March, we had our first set of actual projects where we were designing our own solo games. And the first one was a people fun game. Tyler, would you like to guess what in the game design world, in the game principle world, what people fun would allude to?
I would say it's like Monopoly, except the only thing you do is you get the draw from the community chest, and it's always fun.
Pretty much. It's just really focused on people having fun. It's a little bit engaging. It's a little bit social, but there's no real like competitive elements to it. There's no strategic elements to it, right? And so we designed a game for that called Dysfunctional Family. And honestly, Tyler, this was our masterpiece. So basically, you get a scenario card. You get a bunch of scenario cards. Each scenario card has a certain amount of resources it needs to be completed. And the more scenario cards you complete, the more points you get. And each have different difficulties, which tie to different amounts of points per scenario. And the scenarios were built around the story of a dysfunctional family. So you'd have scenario cards like the scandalous uncle, and we'd have little descriptions of events on the cards saying, "Oh, your uncle Bob was found in a hotel room with your gay gardener and two strippers."
What the hell?
Stuff like we went all for it. There was no PC here. There were no snowflakes here. There was no limits we weren't afraid of crossing here.
It sounds like this would be Seattle's worst nightmare game at this point.
we had resource cards such as money, poverty, and my favorite one, weeds, sex, and alcohol. And so basically you take turns drawing cards, you draw resources, you draw actions that allow you to steal resources from other players. It allows you to give players other scenarios, so it takes them longer to complete their game. The problem was when we designed that game, it wasn't a people fun game. it was more fitting for the next project we got after that, because People Fun is supposed to be a quick, easy to play game, right? And our prof was like, "You, this is awesome." No, actually, our TA was like, "This is awesome, but you can't. It doesn't fit the criteria." So we decided, all right, we'll shelve it for now because we really like this idea. And so we made a game within a week because we already used a week to play test that and make a prototype. So within a week, we made a game called Sold, where you sit in a group, right? You've got two decks of
Okay.
cards. From one's a product deck and one's an audience deck. So you'll draw from a product deck and you'll draw from the audience deck, and you'll get a product that you have to pitch to a specific audience. And you have 45 seconds to come up with the pitch and present it. And so think Cards Against Humanity. Whoever has the best pitch, people vote and they win that round.
Okay, so let me get this straight. The first game was a mafia friendly game, which I'm totally kidding, where you die not in real life. It gets switched over to the concept of a dysfunctional family that involves all sorts of wild and in certain areas of the world illegal illicit activities, and then it evolves into this.
Okay, well, Up the River, that's a game that already exists. We were given that as our first assignment to redesign it. And so we did that, and that's separate. And so when they
Ah,
told us come up with a People Fun game, we came up with Dysfunctional Family. So the foundation for Dysfunctional Family was when we did like a whole brainstorming session. That was one of our labs, one of our workshops.
okay.
And the idea that we decided to go with was you pick like you have 3 or 4 different phases. I can't remember now, but you pick a character. It's I think we called it Build a Hero or something. That was our working title. You'll draw a character that already has a passive ability, and then you'll draw 7 abilities from an ability deck, and you get to keep 4. And then from there, you go into the actual gameplay where you go through scenarios and events and stuff. And we figured that there's too many decks. There's too much. It's just too much to know for like a general kind of casual game. And so that evolved into Dysfunctional Family, where you have to draw resources to complete these events. Because a People Fun game focuses a little bit more on the narrative elements. But then they're like, no, you can't. This it doesn't fit the criteria. And also, it would have been we got censored, Tyler, because
What?
because for
You?
because for our final game, it'd be a bunch of high schoolers playtesting our game. So
Oh no.
we couldn't go forward with Dysfunctional Family. So we have it on the shelf. We will never forget it if we ever decide to ever bring that back to life. And
So
so, yes.
just touch on the whole censored part. Did you get censored because you felt like it might have been too insensitive for that kind of age group?
Yeah, just more inappropriate. Because I think when they meant um, high schoolers from like both limits of ages, right? So what age does high school usually start in North America?
North America, it's usually from 14 to 18.
Yeah, so 14 to 18, talking about strippers, hookers, scandalous affairs. I think not that they aren't exposed to it. I think as a fun pastime game might not have been appropriate.
I would agree, just for the sake of more conservative parents and teachers, because I feel like they would lose their wig. You would probably bring about the next age of revolution that, came along with movies like Grease and Footloose kind of situations here.
Right. Um, I mean, yeah, because they were going to be chaperones. They said they were going to have adult like teachers and stuff chaperoning and checking out the games as well. So I'm like, all right, let's not get ourselves unnecessarily in trouble, right? So we put Dysfunctional Family on the shelf. And then to satisfy the requirements of the People Fund project, we designed Sold, where you draw a product, you draw an audience, and you have 45, I think it was minute or 45 seconds, I can't remember. But you had a short amount of time to prepare a pitch and present it. And these were all products that we got from like, if you Google infomercial products, these are kind of the products that we were working with. So you had like an attachment, like a strap for your head that would hold a toilet paper roll for when you're sick, right? That's the kind of stuff that we had. And then the kind of audience we had was, oh gosh, I can't remember, like pitching to a group of Mormons or I'm on the spot now and I can't remember too much, but that was sold and it did well because it was just like a fun kind of casual game. Like you're drinking with your buds. You're like, all right, let's pull it because we took the idea from Cards Against Humanity where we wanted a kind of like group competition kind of based game that was kind of casual and would get people to know each other a little bit better. But we wanted to
Right.
take it even more like laid back.
I mean, when you think about it, Cards Against Humanity is like the ultimate dream goal at this point, wouldn't it?
In terms of humor, it really depends on the kind of game that you're designing. In terms of humor, I think Cards Against Humanity does so many things well. It has a narrative that you can bring to it based on the group of people that you play with. Um, it has a competitive element because the truly comedic people in any given group would like to be the funniest one.
Right.
Um, the main issue that I see generally with Cards Against Humanity is when they become cultural and you don't get it. Like a lot of the times, I have the Canadian version of Cards Against Humanity, and there's just some terms that I wouldn't know if I wasn't Canadian.
Right.
Right, and
Uh,
that's some of the issues that I see with games like that.
and in my case, I'm not actually a big fan of Cards Against Humanity because the people I usually play with uh don't appreciate my kind of humor. And there's a lot of raunchy laughs that you can have in some of this stuff. And so what I think is comedy gold gets passed up because this person talked about a baby, and it's like, okay, yes, that's fair. You got to play to your audience in that game. But anyways, so you were working on Sold. What happened next?
So then came our Serious Fun project. Now, Serious Fun is a type of game that is meant to make the user or the audience reflect, right, on meaningful actions that they make during the game and how that affects their own life. Sort of some a kind of like relatable game. Um, what's the one visual novel style game that I'm thinking of? Life is Strange. That's a very good example of a serious fun game because you're put in a uh, to some extent universally relatable environment. The kinds of decisions that you have to go through on like a daily basis with high school, and then it starts getting a little wacky, but you still have that element of like, okay, you've got a young kid making all these decisions. What would you do, right? Should I do use my powers here or should I use my powers here?
Right.
Another game would be Papers, Please, where you have to actually do the job effectively of an immigration agent. But if you're anybody who has a little bit of a soul, you feel for everybody coming through all the time, right?
Right. And the game will either reward you or punish you depending on how you handle certain situations. I do remember a specific scene where the husband's like, "My wife is coming in soon. Can you make sure she gets through?" The wife comes in and she has a flaw on her passport. So
Right.
you either got to reject her or let her in. And I'm pretty sure if you decide to let it slide and let her in, she she blows up the place. It's not pretty.
Right. I think like a game like Papers, Please does a really good job at touching on um, the humanity of people, the kind of humanity you need to show to people. But also, I think it does a good job at showcasing some of the very, albeit exaggerated, very real dangers sometimes in our world. I I think in just a very general sense. I don't want to target any specific kind of area.
Certainly not. No, Nick, you
Yeah.
are not known for ever doing anything like that.
So our serious fun game. It was meant to make people think about their game, about the kinds of things that they're doing in the game, not just while they're playing the game as they're trying to win, but also like just the overall theme and narrative of the game. Before I get into that, our very first like mini assignment was to take a game and introduce one feature. I cannot, for the love of my life, remember what game we played and we reintroduced a new feature. But there was another team that introduced a new feature to a game called Monopoly Deal. Have you ever played Monopoly Deal, Tyler?
I don't believe I have. No.
It is the card-based version of Monopoly, and it is so goddamn fun. But I can never win at that game. So basically, you draw from a deck of cards, right? You draw
Okay.
properties, you draw a bunch of other actions that you can do, and you draw money. right? So you'll place down a property. You have rent cards where if you have a property of that color, you'll play that rent card, and then everybody has to pay you that amount of money. You can, if they don't have any money in the bank, they have to pay you in whatever else that they own. So being other properties. So the goal of the
Mm.
game is to complete 3 full sets of properties. Because you'll have similar to with the board game, you'll have 4 of the train stations. So you want to collect all 4 of those, and that'll be 1 full set. Or you'll have
Right, that
3 of the
makes
red
sense.
ones, or 3 of the yellow ones, or 2 of the dark blue ones, which have the highest rent, and so on. And when we play tested the other group that introduced a new feature to that, we fell in love with that game. And so now, as a group, we start off each and every meeting with at least 2 rounds of Monopoly Deal. To this day, since the very time we played that game together, we were like, "Holy shit, we love this game!" We looked online; it's $8 in Walmart. I'm gonna go get it. So we all
No,
have a copy of
good
Monopoly Deal now.
Nice, nice. I know what I'll be playing soon then.
Oh yeah, when you come over and when you yeah, at this point when we release this, you probably wouldn't have met them yet, but hopefully we get a chance to get everybody together and you'll be able to play test Obsessed with Success, which is where Monopoly Deal played a huge amount of influence, in the sense that we enjoyed the way you could mess with people, and we got that also from Exploding Kittens. Exploding Kittens allows you to sabotage other players as much as you want.
That's a card game, Exploding Kittens.
Oh yeah, no. So Exploding Kittens is a card game. So you have 4 players. You each have cards in your hand. You have 1 diffusal bomb, and you have attack cards, defense cards, and a whole bunch of other action cards. But in the deck, there are exploding kittens. When you draw an exploding kitten, you die unless you have a diffusal card. But you only get 1 diffusal card right at the start. So when you draw an exploding kitten, let's say I still have my diffusal card, I diffuse that bomb, but that exploding kitten doesn't get discarded. It goes back into the deck.
Ooh.
Right. So there are, I believe there are, it's made for 3 to 6 players, and there are 6 exploding kittens, and there's always 1 more exploding kitten than the number of players, I think. So if there's 4 players, there's 5 exploding kittens in the deck. And it keeps going until you get to the very end of the deck, and there's like 7 cards left, but you know they're all exploding kittens because the exploding kittens go right back in the deck. So when I pull an exploding kitten and I'm dead, I can choose to put it back wherever I want. I can choose to shuffle the entire deck if I wanted. I can choose to put it right on top. I can choose to put it right in the next 3 cards. So it allows you. It's kind of like fun sabotage style of gameplay where if I draw an exploding kitten, but I have my diffusal, I can choose to put it right on top to force the person next to me to draw that and get rid of their diffusal if they have one.
Brutal. I like it.
Yeah, no, it's a very fun game, and Exploding Kittens Monopoly Deal formed the very foundation of the kind of um, experience that we wanted our players to have. We wanted them to be able to strategize, but also sabotage in a way that made it fun and made it feel fast. We didn't want it to be this long, like strategy type game because somebody in our class actually made Civilization into a board game, and that bored the heck out of me.
Oh no!
Right?
Oh god!
We didn't want that. So basically,
how long is the card game? Like 6 to 9 hours?
Honest, I like a lot of people.
You don't have to answer that legally.
No, a lot of people complained about this, and I will never know why because it's stated very clearly in the project specifications. It said design a game that's really not too much more than 15 minutes. When they designed their game, the Civilization board game, a good playthrough is 45 minutes. And then they were complaining when the TA is like, you can't have it this long. They're like, it says it nowhere. And I'm like, motherfuckers, it says it right there in the project specs. It's not my fault that you can't read properly. It's kind of like, why aren't you reading the project specs?
Were you about to do the clap meme on Twitter? You must read the project specs.
I do that all the time. And so, actually, funny story about that team. So I'm gonna go off on all right. So when we had our first like official presentations for when we first designed Dysfunctional Family, they're like, all right, your presentation shouldn't be more than like, I think they said 7 minutes. That week was unfortunately busy for all of us, like me and my team. so we couldn't really practice our presentation. And so when we actually delivered it, it went up to 11 minutes, but nobody was really like timing. Even the TA and the prof, they weren't timing. But the team that designed the Civ board game, they were timing us. And so when it came to the question and answers and feedback period, one of them raised their hands up, and I called him to this day. From that point to this day, I've called him Clock Boy, because he's like, did you guys practice your presentation? I'm like, no, it's been kind of a rough week, but this is what it's like. Did you know that it was 11 and a half minutes? You guys really should have practiced your presentation. From that moment on, Clock Boy was on my list, and we went hard as fuck for this project, Tyler. When they were playtesting Obsessed with Success, they were all very upset. They were like looking at our cards and like, oh my gosh, you guys did so much work, so extra. I'm like, well, if you really think about it, I didn't say this to them. We were talking as a team after. If you really think about it, if that guy hadn't said anything about us being over, we wouldn't have bothered. That's how petty I am, Tyler. I held a grudge for 2.5 months.
I was waiting, and I was afraid for you that you're going to say they were play testing it, and then they started dog earing the cards or something like that, bent the cards, and then I was going to see you raise like a voodoo doll of this character in question. Like, this guy has bad knees. I have no idea why. As you put another pin into his kneecap or something like that.
No, it's just like,
kudos to Clock Boy.
He lit a fire under us, like collectively as a team. It wasn't just me. Like from that moment on, all of our presentations were 10 seconds under the time limit. All of our slides were spot on. We had animations on our slides. We put so much effort into playtesting. We got our cards printed in the States, same as they did after hearing it from us, but we actually managed to get it on time, and they didn't get it on time. So we just feel fucking fantastic all around, and everybody in the class liked our game the best. So Tyler, this is one of my proudest achievements this year of 2019.
You've been very ecstatic and proud, and honestly, you have everything to show for it. You did, you and your team help and create a video as maybe a showcase video, I guess you would say.
Right. And so I think we all feel a little bit weird about the video because they weren't very clear on what they wanted, the teaching staff. They're just like, we want you to pitch the game, but also we want you to tell us about the playtesting sessions and the iterative process. And I'm like, I want you to make a piece for your portfolio. And I'm like, wouldn't you want us to make more of a marketing pitch then? And so that's why you watched the video. It's very off because we had to fit all these criteria. So when we actually do go forward with this, we're going to be reshooting that and remaking and make one that's actually market worthy.
No, that's completely understandable. I was waiting for the hypothetical pop in my head. They look at it like, we need you to pitch it. Like they don't explain it. Like it needs more cowbell. I know you're hitting as hard as you can. It needs
more. Yeah. No, they gave us like a list of things that they wanted, but it did make sense together. I have no good analogy for it. I'm not quick on my feet like that right now, but they're like, all right, we need you to show us iterative process, but we also need you to show us people having fun, but we also need you to show us the narration, but we also like the narrative, but we also need you to show us the design of the game. Like it's just a very convoluted video that they had, but like overall it worked out, I think. So and Tyler, you're in the video.
My voice is in the video, yes.
Your voice is in the video, and you helped us a lot. Really, honestly, I think it drew in the video together quite well. Thank you.
If you had told me that he took like my emote and kind of like slipped it in like a 3x3 pixel picture somewhere, I was like, but then I started Where's Waldoing for it. But yes, I was both very proud and then very critical of my use of my voice in the video because, well, I told you the reasons.
Right, it was the continuation of the mic issues.
Yes. Unfortunately, I was duct taping my mic together and praying to God that I would not clip anymore. And I'm hoping right now that Nick would tell me if I was ever clipping. That's why he told me last episode, right, Nick? Nick, yes.
Of course I would tell you if you were clipping. I guess it just didn't sound like it to me at that time, and that's the only reason I didn't raise any
It's
concerns.
okay. We were both stressed. We didn't notice it. Nick, we have talked about the history of Obsessed with Success, but we still haven't even touched on it. What is the game?
So, Obsessed with Success is a strategic card game. The narrative background to the game is because we had to think of something that would have an impact that would make our audience, um, what's the word that I'm looking for? Reflect on like real life situations. We wanted to focus on teenage suicides in students in high school, and how much academics pressure is put on them, specifically in parts of Asia, because I'm South Asian, so I'm technically Asian, uh, purely by technicality, and the rest of my team they were from China and Hong Kong. And so this is a culture that we are like our entire team is familiar with. Um, and so going off that, we thought about, all right, parents are putting this much pressure because sure they might want the best for their kids, but it's also very much a societal thing, right? It's
Right.
like, oh, my son goes to Harvard, and my daughter goes to Princeton, or it's very much a culture of, sure, we want the best for you, we want you to be happy, but we also want you to make as much money as you can, kind of thing, so that we're in good social standing.
Can you allow me to put myself in hot water?
Sure, yeah, yeah.
It's like a proud mom of a army or a armed forces veteran who puts a sticker that says, "My child is a army vet," or something like that, where by having her son make a great sacrifice and all that, she feels entitled to ride the coattails of that success, which is terrible, I know, but
No, but
it's
you're absolutely right. It's
it's the same thing.
like
It's
like I can understand, to some extent I can understand, um like watching somebody that you've raised, and you only want the best for them, but living your dreams through them, or worrying about what they're going to do and how that's going to affect you and your life. And so you want them to only be the best, you only want them to be an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer. It's just an insane amount of pressure, and it's not fair because they're going to grow up to be their own people. if you as a child if you as a child, I can understand feeling obligated to, doing, making your parents proud, and helping them out when they get older. That's all fine and dandy, but only living your life for them is not going to give you any long-term happiness, which in the end is not going to get them any long-term happiness, and just it's a lose-lose all around. um
it's rough, man. But more importantly, you turned a game out of it.
right.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, so looking at so I started talking about parents, and looking at parents are like, well, isn't this almost like a competition? It's almost as if we could turn this into a board game.
A board
And
game of
so
four neighbors who have their children going to the same school.
so the official name for the game is Obsessed with Success. The motto slash tagline is the ultimate parenting competition. And so you as a player are a parent, and you control a piece that represents your child. And so you're trying to equip your child with the best skills they have for them to be the most successful and confident student by the end of the game. Um, you set up, you have a little board that tracks one of our resources called confidence. It goes from 10 to 0. 10, 8, 10, 9, and 8 confidence, it means you're overconfident, and so that has some effects. 7, 6, 5, 4 is normal confidence. It's like your standard, all right, everything's good, we're doing okay, you're a good student.
It's
And
Monday.
then
I'm not calling in sick.
exactly. And then 3, 2, 1 is like you're super insecure, you don't have any confidence, and that has some benefits to it. Because
I'd
when you hit
rather call in sick and watch Dragon Ball Z all day.
because when you hit 0, you're eliminated from the game. And so you start off with a bunch of cards. Everybody's dealt 5 cards. You draw 2, and the cards go from skills, actions, events, and encouragement. Encouragement replenishes confidence for when you lose some, or when you're getting dangerously low. Actions allows you to. Actually, I should probably start the other way. Encouragement is fine. We covered that because confidence is key. You have to keep it up, and you want to be the student with the most confidence. Then you have skills. 3 categories of skills: sports, music, and academics. The more skills you have, the better you will be when it comes to the events. So when an event card is played, let's say somebody plays a sports event card, but I have one sport in my skill count. I have one, and Tyler has three. And if he plays a sports card, I will lose points. I will lose confidence according to the amount stated on the card.
Right.
And so it goes according to that. We have event cards that go for each category. So sports, music, and academic events. And we also have school championship events, which take into account everybody's skill points. Um, then you have action cards that allow players to steal, swap, exchange skills, force other players to lose skills. And I'm sorry. Yes, Tyler.
I was going to ask, would that mean, for the sake of the meta, because I'm creating a meta in my head already, you would want to typically either specialize in a skill that you know your opponents don't have to give you the edge, but then you introduce the idea of a decalathon or whatever you want to call it, where you use all three skills to match together for a one big three moment there. How have players been like proceeding in order to win?
Again, it's a game that's based on luck to a large extent because of the kinds of cards you're dealt and the kinds of cards you draw. So it is absolutely imperative that after your first few playthroughs, you start being a little bit more flexible with your kind of strategy, because you won't know what you're going to do until you have the cards in your hand. Okay. So, but we've seen quite a lot of play styles. We've seen players go on the defensive and just spam all the encouragement cards they have, so they stay at 10 confidence. So regardless of what happens to everybody else, they're not going to play any skills. They're probably not going to do any actions. They'll just stay up there. So by the time the deck runs out, they'll probably be the winner. You have players who play a very glass cannon build, where they might not have the skills when they play an event card. So they're going to lose points, but they're dragging other people down, and then they have an encouragement card to bring them back up. So it is a very we've seen people play it in ways that we weren't even predicting, and
that's the best thing, isn't it?
It's so much. That was one of the best things ever. Seeing people do things and like, holy shit! Okay, I could never have thought of people doing these things, and that's part of why with all the feedback we've gotten, because we've put maybe in 2 weeks we've put maybe 14, 16 hours in people play testing. External people. I'm not talking about just us, because we've play tested a bunch. But just about 14, 16 hours, outside people's families, other friend groups, just a whole bunch of people, like other people in our workshops, just to figure out, all right, where the loopholes are, where the OP cards are, and we've adjusted things accordingly.
And now that you've done plenty of playtesting and all that stuff, you did say that you had a official playtest copy printed out.
Yes. So there is a company called Print and Play in Vancouver, Washington.
What? Vancouver, Washington?
There is a Vancouver, Washington. It's right by Eugene, Oregon.
Okay. Is that a sister city at this point, or did they
honestly I've no idea.
Enjoy the glory? Okay, sure. Anyways, Vancouver, Washington.
Yeah, they're based there. Yeah. We sent them, they have like templates where you put in like your cards and your board, like the board cover design, everything. We sent it to them. And because of the time constraint, like we did send it in, not last minute, but we really didn't have a lot of time to work with. They're like, all right, if you want it on this day, it's 120 if we ship to the States, 180 if we ship to Vancouver, if we ship to Canada. And I'm like, why don't you just ship it to my cousin in Seattle? I'll drive down and I'll get it. It's a lot. Like, I only spend about 30 in gas to fill up my tank, 35 maybe. And it'll be maybe a 6-hour trip if I stop and take my time. It's not going to be a big deal, because I'd rather save that. This is US, by the way, not Canadian.
Okay, so, I was doing the whole meme with equations up in the background. 0.06.
No, this is all in US. And so we did that. One of my team members, Crystal, she accompanied me just because it was early in the morning and I was gonna fall asleep. If I didn't have somebody with me. So we picked it up, came back. Yes, Tyler.
I would like to say, first off, shame on Vancouver, Washington's businesses for not offering some kind of sweet deal for shipping to its own city that may exist in Canada. The second thing is this is amazing information for somebody who wants to build a card game in Canada, you know, and I'm sure there's options in Canada, but for something this convenient and accessible, you would have to, you know, make the extra jump just to, you know, get an American based product. You're talking almost $80 worth of additional cost just for shipping.
Well,
and
this was a rush
import.
order also. So I don't
Sure.
know. I don't know what it could have been if we were like 3 weeks out and we're like, yeah, dude, we have 3 weeks of time. Just ship it whenever it's ready. So I could. I'm not in a situation to give anybody a fair idea of what the cost would have been like then.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair
I'm
enough.
sure there were other local options, but these guys seem to be the most viable option for such a uh, time constrained rush order. And so we're like, all right, let's do it. And I have to say, parts of our product look okay. The the actual case for the game, the cover and the case, they look fantastic. The rule sheet that we designed looks fantastic. The cards, however, do not. So when they sent us a template, on the template there was three rings, three like lines for the rectangle for each card. One was a bleed line, one was a cut line, and one was where everything should go. Right. So in
Okay.
in the order from inside to outside, cut line, um, um, no, info like the content line, cut line, and then bleed. Right. And so we assumed, which is what they said, is you just stick it in the template, align everything, and then we'll cut according to that. They didn't. So a lot of our cards have like, thank God we had the bleed, otherwise everything would look bad. But a lot of our cards have like too much cutoff on one side, too little cutoff on the other side, but they're all uniform at least. So at least they fit in a deck.
Hmm.
Needless to
Good.
say, we probably will never use them again.
Ooh. Okay. That's information that no. I was actually like, I always wanted to make my own card game. Maybe I'll go. Nope. Okay, fine. Vancouver,
Game
Washington, you've been
Game
warned.
Crafter is another website that's based in Wisconsin. Another company, Game Crafter, and apparently they do quite good work too, and they're not as expensive.
I bet they're operated in Bay City, Wisconsin. I think it's from Bay City, Wisconsin to Bay City, Michigan. It feels like it would be a perfect match for me. Maybe they won't give me a discount.
Maybe they won't, but like all I heard was that it was Wisconsin, and I'm like, all right, cool. That's a place in the states that I've heard of before, but definitely don't know where it is. So
Okay, so it's understandable, but also upsetting because I could not tell you where the fuck any of the I was about to call them territories, provinces of Canada lie.
right,
I know British Columbia.
yeah, it's all the way out there.
Okay. Next one, I have no idea. Yes, Saskatchewan. I know Toronto, which obviously is closer to me. That would make sense.
Right, right.
What
Toronto
are
is in Ontario, which
New
is
Brunswick?
sure.
That sounds like a city. Okay, I'm about to tear myself apart here with Canadian.
We know geography.
Yeah, the Tyler Canadian Initiative. Teach me about Canada. Okay, so how many cards are in this game?
113.
113. That offers a shit ton of variety.
Yeah, 113. Oh no, sorry, 113 total cards. In terms of action cards, I think we have 14 or 15 different kinds, and so there's a lot that you can do. We've got double damage event cards. We've got event cards that make action cards that make everybody lose discard one skill forcibly. You've got I think it's called Oh My God No, which is if somebody does like a particularly devastating action, you can play that card as defense, and then it negates the action. Um, we've got some
Oh
defense.
my god, no.
Yeah, we've got some. We wanted to be a little bit, a little bit. We wanted to be hip, a little bit young, and
Oh boy. Here Nick, probably the hippest person I know at this point, besides maybe one or two other people. Like the other people are like full on beanie, kick hacky stack hip.
right.
Tell we're trying to be hip, reach the
Well, okay,
mainstream audience,
no, no, no. I'll
man.
tell you, no, I'll tell you why I say that because I am turning 24. The person who's next oldest is 22, and it
Ah,
just
so
goes.
you are the senior executive of this
I'm the
project.
senior, yeah, and then it just goes younger from there. I think the youngest is 21. She just turned 21.
Cool, cool.
Yeah.
To help clarify, you did say in the project that the games are supposed to last around 15 minutes. How long you did the playtesting? How long does it usually take for you to complete a game?
If my team is playing, anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes. Like it
Depending on
really
how crazy
depends.
shit. Okay. No,
Yeah.
you
Um,
said random luck, so I mean RNG is a beautiful thing.
yeah. And we wanted to keep that. It was a hard decision because so when we had our play testing showcase, and our TA and our prof came and they were play testing our game, my prof got eliminated in round two, which has never ever happened. That it was just a very unlucky series of unfortunate events. Like that never happens. That's the first time recorded that somebody's been eliminated in round two. And he was so salty about it that he got up and left. He got up and left. And then the three of us, it was four of us playing, three of us continued playing. And then he came back after we'd finished and he's like, all right, I've got some feedback for you. I'm like, motherfucker, you got salty and you left because you had the unfortunate luck of being eliminated, but at least stay and watch what we're doing because you're grading us on this. Watch the actions we're playing, the kinds of skills, the kind of strategies we're coming up. Because he's like, I didn't really feel like the game was that you had no meaningful decisions. I'm like, but you weren't here, and our TA stood up for us. God bless him. He really stood up for us. He's like when you left, and I don't know why you left. We actually like things really started getting interesting, and it was really close. Like my TA won the game, and I'm like, thank you, because how can you? It's like me. It's like me critiquing League of Legends and Dota 2 this entire time without without playing as much and be like, I fucking hate this.
That's first game. You're like, all right, I got so much to tell you about League of Legends here. Nick, and yeah, here's my third hypothetical that popped in my head during this whole conversation. I was waiting for you to say like one of them, like of you and your team, like dead-eyed him and said, 1 out of 5 of the people that commit suicide do it in freshman year. They give it up early, and just hit him with that deep knowledge. Like that's why you lost on round 2 because it can happen. It can happen as soon as that. You're
I
laughing,
mean,
buddy.
that makes sense because like when you're out of confidence, you're eliminated from the game. But that's very much heavily implying that when your child loses confidence and their confidence goes too low, that's end of the road. And yeah, it is a heavy game. It touches on heavy topics. Some of the teams did fantastic work with their like narrative elements. We had a team that did a game based on slavery. I can't remember the exact uh, the exact part of history or the kind of the event that they were portraying, but basically a bunch of people were able to escape their quote unquote masters, and it was a game that you play I think for 5 days on the road and you try to survive.
Wowzers. Okay. Sorry, that hit a lot closer than home than what we were expecting. No offense, Canada is the place where we all tried to get to. Well, I shouldn't say we all, but
No, so
you
yeah, I
know,
think that was it. Like it was, I can't remember what event specifically it was, but it was a group of people who managed to escape, and they were trying to make their way north into Canada. Then there was another group that did
in
a
5 days,
thing
that's impressive. Wow, are they androids? Is this Detroit Become Human?
on
I'm
what
sorry, that
game?
was an allegory. My bad.
No, no allegories. We don't do
No,
that.
no, no allegories. Wow, episode
Um,
3 shout back right there.
there was another team. They were called Schooled, and they were kind of like our counterparts in the sense that their game was focused on university life. So you start off the game with a certain amount of grade points and a certain amount of money, and you have to survive 10 weeks of a semester to get to the end with the highest grade points without being in debt. Because when you run out of money, you can get a loan from the bank.
Ooh,
Yeah,
and I
and
know how that goes. I know a lot of people know how that goes.
and so it was touching on that kind of like struggle that a lot of people go through with how basically universities become like post-secondary educations become an industry instead of like a thing that people can pursue. right?
Nick, it sounds like you have a great game that's happening right now. It's currently obviously in the beta phase. Have you and the team considered the possibility of introducing this to people who might want to give this a shot?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So it's gonna take a while, and we honestly have to do a lot of research because we are relatively young. We're a group of 5 people. We all have different priorities, but we work really well as a team. And so it's imperative now that because we've all shown interest in moving this forward, that we take time and figure out, um, figure out a business plan, figure out deadlines, figure out goals, find suppliers, find manufacturers, find distributors, and put together a proper document before we even think about anything. Because I looked into a Kickstarter, and a Kickstarter needs all of those, and it also needs bank details. So we have to figure out, all right, who's going to hold the money? Is it going to be a joint account? Are we all going to have access to it? Because who's going to keep track of it? Um, how are your goals in the next 2 years going to align with this? Because that's, I think, the safest or most minimum amount of time we have to look into if we're going to commit to this. In 2 years, where are you going to be? Are you still going to be interested? Because without any kind of without any kind of fault or without any blame, when school picks up, either one of us can disassociate from this project a little bit because we have our priorities. So it's
Right.
going to take some time, but we really really want to work on this because we honestly truly believe we made a really good game. We think it's going to be a lot of fun, um, and it's just exciting. It's just I want to do this, and I haven't been excited for something like this in a long time.
No, the last time I heard this much passion was about 45 minutes ago when you were trying to take on the Lionel. And this is a different time.
Listen, Lionels can eat a dick for all I care.
And we will happily discuss that in the podcast,
Yeah.
like the for realsies. But is there any last things, people that might be interested in something like this? How can they figure out more information?
Read. Honestly, because so we had, I think one of the best things out of this class was we had a textbook assigned to us that was about the foundations of like game design. So I'm not saying that you need to get this textbook specifically, but I'm sure if you were to Google game design or principles of game design, all the different theories would pop up and read, learn about them, and start making prototypes with pen and paper with cards. So all we did, like our early prototypes were we took a deck of playing cards, we on sticky notes we wrote down skills, school, academics +1, stuck it on the sticky card on the playing card, and then we use that, right?
Nick, you must have misread, or maybe I said it wrong. I'm saying if they want to know more about Obsessed with Success,
Oh yeah,
how can they keep updated?
I was trying to be wise and
You were trying to be
retarded
super
wise.
academic. If Nick, if you're trying to follow your dreams and your passions, why would I ask? How can you become a competitor to this person so they can outdo you?
I don't mind, dude. Competition is healthy. Competition forces people to change, and the only constant in this world is change.
Right, because if you talk for more than 7 minutes in a presentation, it's game over. No, competition keeps it fierce. All it takes is for a clock boy just give you shit.
It was Clock Boy, and we called him Clock Team too. Honestly, if he didn't, we were thinking, but we went to dinner after our showcase, and we were sitting there. We all had some beers, we all had some sushi, and we're like, you know, if they didn't call us out, we wouldn't have done all of this, right? Because the amount of sleepless, like our editor did that video in one day, Tyler. He only had
And
a
that
day to
shit's
work
amazing too.
because we had to go and get the game before we could put some of those shots of the game in the video, right? So, like for example, our showcase was on a Thursday. We went and got the game on a Monday, and he could only work on it on the Wednesday because of no, we got it on Tuesday. And he could only work on it the Wednesday because of school, his other projects. So he did that in one day. Our graphic designers fucking knocked it out of the park. Um, I will say as well, it made it a lot easier because Dysfunctional Family provided a good base for us to make this game. And so when during the week that everybody was still pitching, we'd already play tested. So we had a bit of a leg up, and so we had time to do all these other things and absolutely make it the best game that we possibly could.
Good deal. And to answer the question that he won't answer himself, you can find out updates from him, I guess, through LR Warrior 11 on Twitter. are the letter Warrior 11. People who listen to the show, they know this, and I hope that until you guys can get like an independent group communication format, like some kind of social media here, we will hopefully be able to provide more updates as the game progresses.
Yeah, we'll see.
Please, because I want to play this game, dude.
I mean, you will be playing the game, Tyler. But
Yeah,
if you were to Google, YouTube, and I'm sure Tyler will put a link to the video. But
I
if you go to
absolutely will.
YouTube, Obsessed with Success, Tim Fung, Fung, you'll be able to see our video. Um, and follow, like, honestly, just follow my social media or keep an eye on that. LR Warrior on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and that's where we'll be talking about our Kickstarter or whatever we do in the next few months, because it's going to take a while and we want to make sure that we do it right.
Absolutely. And I think that's going to be it, Nick. Much like your presentation, I think we went over the 7-minute mark. So let's wrap this up.
The only difference here is that we enjoy our rants, Tyler.
Well, yeah, I do. I love them. Is there any last things you want to say before we call it good?
No, I'm honestly, the only one last thing I did want to say was I've never showed any interest in being part of like a video game development team. But honestly, this might have changed my mind in the sense that I wouldn't mind being part of in a communication role where we're figuring out mechanics and how to make it fun rather than a strictly a coding role. I I don't know how, but me getting involved in video games has happened, and I wasn't planning for it to happen, and I'm excited to ride that wave.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do love when I get to see you have a little extra energy. I mean, don't get me wrong, you're always bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, but
I'm usually a little bit more mellow, I know.
Well, usually the only time I see you excited and breathing heavy is when you're getting ready to headshot somebody in Crucible. So seeing this is nice. It's nice. It's salt-free passion right here. All right, let's call it for that. Thank you guys for listening. That was Obsessed with Success. We're hoping to give you, more updates in the future. That was Nick. Him and his team are working on it. This is Tyler, the dumb guy who was asking questions. That was Clockboy, who told me that this was way too long of a show, but who cares? Give me the passion to do it anyways. And that was another side quest of Casual Master Quest. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye. I love you.